All right, so now we can jump into it. You and I are off air, and you started going. I said, "Hold on, Bill. Let me hit the recording. Pump the brakes." But first off, yeah, appreciate you doing this and sharing some best practices with some other agents, maybe that you've walked before. Then maybe
Sure.
watch this interview and maybe get some good takeaways, so they can start to go out there and have some of the success that you're having. So first and foremost, appreciate you doing this.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, for sure. So now I'd love to kind of hear your story. How long have you been in the business? Where do you sell real estate? And then we'll get into it.
Yeah, so this is my fourth year, and I'm selling in Myrtle Beach and kind of the surrounding areas there.
Yeah, it's a great market.
Yeah,
I always tell my wife, if I ever move from Michigan to sell real estate again, it'll be in Myrtle Beach.
yeah.
So
If you like absentees, it's a good spot.
it's a great spot. So 4 years, give us an idea from a production standpoint what the last couple of years has looked like for you.
Yeah, so I mean, it's when the market kind of turned, it was horrible, right? And then I kind of found you on YouTube, committed to that. That was like 20. I did 27 transactions that year,
Yeah,
right, just over 5 million volume. And then
awesome.
this year I'm at like right at 23, 24 transactions, and I'm hovering right around 5 million again.
Okay, so you could double this year, right? I mean, that's you
Yes, kind of the goal. Yeah.
Yeah, and so you could get to 50, I think is kind of where you're trying to get to. Is that right?
Right. Yeah. 100%.
Yeah, it's
Yep.
amazing. So that's what I want to talk about, right? So how is it that you've been able to scale your business? And so before we talk about what are you doing now, um, I want the audience to be able to understand, Bill, some of the struggles that you went through early on that I think a
Yeah.
lot of agents probably deal with right now. Talk to me
Sure.
about that. Like, what was the first year like? What were you trying to do to get leads and generate clients and get listings? And then we'll transition to what you're doing now that's working.
Yeah. So I was always outbound prospecting. I think it was just a little bit of delusion about like how much I really needed to do. So, started calling for sale by owners, but just, severe call reluctance, like, I mean, just calling six was like an accomplishment. It takes a lot out of you. And then, I saw an interview you did with somebody that's in my market, and it was like it was just a huge moment for me where he's saying he's having, 70 to 100 conversations a day. And I'm calling six for sale owners. I wasn't even talking to six, right? And I
Yeah.
felt exhausted. So that was kind of like an aha moment where I was like, I'm not doing enough.
Yeah. So I guess let's stay here for a second.
Sure.
How did you buy into this idea? I'm curious how you, because you're very fortunate. What I mean by that is this. How did you buy into the idea that if you're going to be successful in this business of real estate sales, that you're going to have to treat it like a sales business? In other words, you're going to have to prospect. That's the dirty word that you and I both know, Bill. Most agents don't want to hear, they don't want to
Right.
accept, they won't do it, and they'll avoid it. How did you, as a brand new agent, come into this with that mindset?
Well, so before I became an agent, I actually started off thinking I was going to be an investor. And so, like the wholesale side and everything. And
Yeah.
so it was a lot of like sending out yellow letters and things like that. But obviously, even once that happens, you still need to know how to field that phone call. And at some point, I came to terms with the fact that I was just avoiding it, right?
Mm.
So it's either shit or get off the pot, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Well, what would you say though to like agents? Because it is the vast majority that would say, like, I'm curious how you would respond to the vast majority who would say, Bill, like, no, man, I'm not gonna. I'm waiting for business. I'm gonna do social media. I'm gonna do everything but pick up the phone and call strangers. I
yeah.
don't want any part of that. I don't believe that this is a sales business. I'm a brand new agent, and I'm gonna do it. I want to do it on social media. What would you say to that agent?
I mean, I would guess that I'd probably ask them how it's working for them.
Yeah,
It's probably not working all that well. I mean, I did the whole thing. Like I was avoiding it in several different ways, thinking I was, it's just busy work, right? You're still exhausted at the end of the day. You just have nothing to show for it.
yeah. So I think the first takeaway for agents, to your point, is like and this is where I say this till I get blue in the face, but it's like we have to accept the fact that real estate is a sales business. Why so many people push back on that? I still scratch my head. You know how
Yeah.
many people, if when I post this on YouTube, do you know how many people in the comments are going to say, this isn't a sales business? What are you talking about? I'm like, Well, let me think about this. You have to go out there, communicate with people that you know, communicate with people that you don't know, go there and interview to list someone's house. I don't know if this isn't sales. I don't know what it is. Why do you
Yeah.
believe people push back on that?
Well, I mean, it's the same. I mean, it's just like when I was calling for sale by owners, right? Like, I was so nervous, I thought I was going to throw up, right? It took a lot of energy to just call six of them, right? And then even if I was successful and someone agreed I'm going to meet with them, I had no idea what I was going to say.
Yeah,
So it's just the whole thing is just exhausting, and so it's a lot easier to not do that. And then on top of that, even once you start calling it, today, if I get in a slump, I've had a slump a week and a half here. Like, I'm calling absentees, and it can still feel like that. And so with not having a track record and it feels like you're spinning your wheels, it's easy to discount it and stop doing it.
yeah, yeah, no doubt. All right, so let's break down kind of what it looks like today. Walk us through what your schedule looks like, how much prospecting you're doing. What does an average week look like?
Yeah, so I get in the office at 7:30. I start calling by 8 o'clock. Originally, I started calling a lot of for sale by owners, some expireds, and then absentees. End of last year, I made a pretty heavy switch into absentee and circle prospecting, kind of intentionally. And so I'll prospect from 8 to about 11:30. Um, and then it's lunch, and then it's servicing, from like 1 to 3, and then appointment prep from there. Otherwise, I'll hop back on and usually do some calls.
Got it. All right. So let's get into this. So first off, yeah, let's go back to the strategic switch that you made from FISBOs and expireds to absentee and circle prospecting. Let's talk about that. I seem to keep falling into this conversation quite a bit. I'm curious
Yeah.
from your perspective, what made you, what had you do the switch?
Well, so picking your clients, right? I mean, for sale by owners they were good to me. Like, that was the first year. I just followed your YouTube plan, right? It was just like, how am I going to get to 100K? And then from there, I'll hop on coaching, right? So like
Yeah.
that worked for me for a long time. But then, hearing some of your other videos talking about picking your clients and then also having business kind of coming back to you, and then you have enough experiences. You work with a for sale by owner and you work with someone that you circle prospect or as absentee. Like, if you had to pick one, personally, I'm going to pick the absentee, right? Or the
Yeah.
circle. So, and then just looking long term, how do I get business coming back to me? Someone who really believes in what I do as value. It just felt like a good long term strategy, and bit the bullet for probably like 3 months because I knew I was going to give up a little income. Like, you make that switch, like there's just some delay there.
Yeah.
But now I think it's coming back around. It feels worth it.
Yeah. And you speak about these points. So, I don't know what the word is, but like I think most people would have missed that. So if you're okay, I'm going to slow that piece down because you just
Yeah,
dropped so much gold, and I want
sure,
agents to listen to this, Bill, and not miss it. So let me unpack what you just said because you just said all
yeah,
the gold. Well,
sure.
what he said and what you just said is with for sale by owners and expireds, um, it's like this blessing and curse. The blessing is okay, perhaps it's the fastest converting type of opportunity we have. That's great. But also what comes with that is tons of competition, tons of urgency. You don't get to pick the type of property you get to sell. We don't know where those properties are. We don't know anything about the price point. We don't know anything about anything, right? So we don't get to have a lot of choice. And so in the early days, you said, okay, let me build some cash flow, which is what
Right.
you did. You went after for sale by owners and expireds. And then you strategically, as a business strategy, you said, I'm going to switch that and I'm going to go after circle prospecting and absentees. What that means for the audience, I know you know this, but for the audience that's listening, that means those are what we would call pipeline lead sources, where maybe they take a little bit longer to convert, right? So that's the downside. And then on the upside, to your point, is now you do have choice in the type of property, the price point, et cetera, and you have a lot less competition. And so for you in your market, that was only about a 90-day swing.
It was probably a little longer than that. I mean, I'd already been doing it, right? So I had a little bit of bridge there. It wasn't like a dead stop. I was still
Yeah.
calling several owners, but like, I mean, I would say probably more like 6 months where I feel like I'm getting an actual inbound, which was not really a thing before. Because I can have a database full of for sale by owners. That's great. But like, you know, it's just, it's rarely inbound. They've had enough phone calls that it's just rarely, they just email you, hey, come on out.
Yeah, so let me
Yeah.
explain to the audience what you mean by that. Like when you
Yeah.
say this, right? You speak from this lens because you live it. And most
Yeah.
of these agents would watch an interview like this, Bill, and kind of get it. And so
Sure.
that's another huge nugget. What you mean by
Yeah.
that is you really can't build a pipeline with FISBOs and expireds. Why? Because you have so much competition and that timeline of conversion is so short that if you don't get it on the first, second, or third call, it's gone. There is no building of a pipeline that compounds. Whereas if you have 20, 30 conversations today with, absentee owners or some type of circle prospecting conversation, well, number one, you might be the only person they've ever talked to in
Right.
years. And
Right.
then that person, the reality is they're not, unlike a for sale by owner or an expired, they're not selling today. But when you generate a lead, then that lead goes into the pipeline. And then over time, when that person's ready to put their property to market, it's pretty much Bill's already won the business because you've won the business through your lead follow up. And that's kind of what
Right.
you're saying. Is that right?
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Like find, and then once you kind of experience that, you find a lead. Like if you find a lead as we define it, right? A
Yeah.
for sale by owner lead versus when you find a circle prospected lead, or it's a different feeling because you've got you're ahead of the game there.
Yeah. All right. So let's give the audience some context around that. What you just said. Now, how many conversations are you having on average between call it eight and noon roughly?
Yeah, it's like 20. It's between 20 and 30. My goal is
Perfect.
30. Yeah.
Okay. So 20 to 30, and then in the average day or week, I don't know. Some days it's better than others. How many leads are you able to generate typically?
So now that I've switched, it's kind of in flux, right? It's like 7%
Yeah.
of conversations are a lead.
Yeah.
It dropped, right? Because when I call
Sure.
circle, it goes lower, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's about 7%.
So 7% is your conversion rate, which is awesome, which means that you're getting, on average, you get about 2 leads a day.
Right, right. But that could be kind of that's what I was talking about before. Why people I think don't do it, right? Because like I can go 3 days without any, and then I just clear all that mess out of my way, and then if you don't prospect that next day, I've had 5 leads in a day, right? So
Right.
I think that's another reason people kind of quit because it still feels like that. I still get that feeling today. If I go a full
Absolutely.
day without a lead, it feels like a total waste of time.
I know. And this is called, I don't know if I've ever told you this. This is called, you remember it. It's called the gambler's fallacy. Have I ever told
Yeah,
you about this?
I heard that. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So this is the idea when you say 7%, right? So it's like, okay, that means then, all right, I call 100 people, 7%, I can do the math. That means 7 leads. Okay. Call 100 people. I don't get 7 leads. This doesn't work. Well, it's
right,
not you call 100 people and get 7. It's you
right.
call uh,
1,000.
10,000
Yeah,
over
yeah.
a year and a half to you get it, right? So it's like,
Totally.
in the gambler's fallacy, this came about because of the game of roulette, right? It's like
Yeah,
red or black is a 48% chance you land on red, whatever. But it could spin 25 times in a row and hit black 25 times in a row. That
right.
doesn't change the average conversion because over a long period of time, that's what you're referring to. So over a long period of time, you figured, okay, I get 7%. Some days you get none. Some days you get 4, right? But it
Yeah.
all averages out over time. All right. So you want to add something to that?
No, no, I'm good.
All right. So, what can you share about the conversation, the prospecting conversation from a sales skills perspective that A, allow you to have better conversations and then B, help you to actually generate a high quality lead? What have you learned that's helping you have these conversations?
Yeah, so obviously your scripts are huge. So like using your scripts, giving them autonomy to where it's their decision on the call, right? It's their decision to move forward after the pattern interrupt, right?
Yep.
It's always their decision. But I would say the biggest thing is disqualifying a lead, right? That is completely like I said, I was prospecting before, but it's unclogged my business, right?
Yeah.
It's changed follow up for me. It's changed everything because if you're chasing down a bunch of people that aren't actually leads, I wasn't taking into account opportunity cost in doing that, right? I was like, I'm going to follow up with everybody, but you
Yeah.
get a call reluctance because why are you calling them? And then, you get the opportunity cost. So the no oriented and the giving them autonomy is huge, and then disqualifying them, making sure you can really define when you have an opportunity in front of you versus someone you're going to spin your wheels with for, potentially a year, right?
That's right. That's a big, huge uh, shift in how most people sell and how most people in our business prospect. Because
Mm-hmm.
most of us are using the old traditional scripts from, I don't know, some of these real estate gurus that everybody talks about. And all that we've learned is how to try to force people to tell us yes.
Right.
Right. And so most of the time, all those yeses are just, fake. And so we end up, to your point, kissing frogs, just chasing
Yeah.
opportunities and getting nothing, because what you've learned to do is do the opposite of that, which is make it okay for the prospect to tell you the truth. In fact, you invite them to tell you no, because what we're looking for is the truth. Can you speak
Right.
to that a little bit and give us some
Yeah,
examples?
I'm 100%. Like I said, it's a huge change in my business, right? So, like, when you say that, like, to someone who doesn't have business in front of them, I can speak like firsthand. It sounds like a line, right? Or like a mindset. Like, you want to make them think that you don't need the business, right? Like, it just sounds like that. But like, that's the reality. Like, if someone's like eager to meet with me, I'm very hesitant to just jump up and go, right? Like,
Yep.
I'm gonna ask a certain line of questions. Um, Even just as like the most basic one of like, when the time comes and you're ready to list your house, do you have an agent you're 100% committed to already, right? I can't even tell you. I've had people say, yeah, just call me in 3 months because we're gonna be. And I'll be like, perfect, I can do that. I'll mark that down. Can I ask you a quick question though? Like, do you have an agent? And then it's yes. I'm glad you asked that. I actually do. I can't use you. My sister's an agent. It's
That's
like,
right. Well,
yeah,
so let's hold on. So that's, I mean, so good. It's because most of these agents that are untrained, they don't understand this buyer seller matrix. And what they don't understand is that prospects will lead you to believe that they're interested when they're not. They will
right,
manipulate the salesperson. They'll say, "Oh yeah, come on over," just so they can extract all the information from you with
right,
no intent of ever working with you. And most agents will jump all over that. They're so desperate, they're so needy for a listing. They jump all over that. Someone says, "Go show me this house." Absolutely. They'll leave their firstborn's birth to go show a property. They're so desperate for a commission check. And
right,
here's the truth. Disqualifying what we've learned is that there are more reasons on why prospects don't do business with us than there are reasons they do. And so when
right,
you're the one trying to find all those reasons on why they shouldn't do business with us and we can't find any, well, now you've got a real opportunity. Where most
right.
agents are doing the opposite. They don't want to hear those reasons, and so they don't ask good questions. It's a great
Yeah,
point.
yeah, 100%. Yeah,
All
it's
right.
been huge.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about the listing appointment in just a second, but before we do that, talk to us about the importance of lead follow-up, especially in your business model, and maybe what it is that you're doing to convert these leads into appointments long term.
Yeah, so I mean, I really just following step by step what you talk about, right? So the when the biggest thing is now is when I get off when I'm ending a call is asking them when it makes sense for us to talk again, right? Because a lot of times you think you can pin down like, oh, it sounds like I should just call around this time. A
Right.
lot of times the prospect they'll surprise you, right? Sometimes it's sooner, sometimes it's later, and then also you get this call reluctance later, right? It was a huge problem in my business. I had so much call reluctance for follow-ups. So now they give that timeline, and then I'm going to cut the timeline in half, right? We send them the letter with the lotto ticket, like you talk about. We do that. And then, like I said, cut the timeline in half, and they're just going to get a call right there, right?
Yeah. Love it. Love it.
Yeah.
And the other piece too, I think why a lot of agents have call reluctance around lead follow-up conversations, it's because there is no substance on why we're following up.
Right.
So they call and they check in. Hey, I'm just checking in, just following up. How you been?
Right.
These people are not looking for a friend, right? They don't need more friends. But most
Yeah.
realtors are prospecting for friends because it's a lonely business, right? That's a
Yeah.
joke. But they
Yeah.
are, they try to be everybody's buddy, and they end up winning no business because they're so concerned with, oh, I hope this person likes me.
Yeah.
So you make it very clear that the reason we're following up is to talk about getting together and helping you get this property sold. I mean, that's why we're having the next conversation. So what are you doing? Well, the beautiful thing about your business model, I'm going to guess, but because you're not competing with a bunch of agents, your listing appointment or your ability to win business has become very easy now. Make initial call, follow up, and then the to your point, and most of it's like, all right, Bill, we're ready. Come on over and list the house.
Right. And that's just kind of starting to happen, right? Like I switched to that last year. So I'm starting to feel that now. Actually, it dropped my conversion rates on listing appointments for a while because there's a lot of discovery and
Yes.
whatnot, originally. But yeah, now it's starting to get to that point where it's like, if I set five, it's 5 for 5, right? Which is
Yeah.
huge.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's
Is
definitely
there any
helped.
part of the listing presentation that you've learned that you find most impactful? Like if you look at the listing presentation I've taught you, we talk about setting the agenda, the pricing presentation, which has a bunch of pieces in there, the value proposition, et cetera. Is there a part that you say, okay, as soon as I get into this piece of the presentation, I know
Yeah.
I've won the business?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, it's kind of a little tweak, but setting yourself up and starting to sell against your own interests, talking about other agents and how they're going to sit, they'll tell you anything and everything you want to hear.
That's right.
That part and saying that I'm not going to do that, I think it just does a really good job of setting the tone for there's going to be things I'm going to say that you might disagree with. I want you to bring that up to me. And that tone kind of carries throughout the presentation. So, when you're talking to somebody, you can feel when there's something they're holding back. It allows us to kind of pull that out
Yeah.
and address it. So there's nothing left on the table. If that makes
Yeah.
sense.
We call it disarmingly honest.
Yeah.
And so most agents, you're right. Most agents are sitting on what we call a time bomb. Where to
Right.
your point, they feel a seller's like, you kind of feel it, but they never say anything.
Yeah.
And then they
That was
wait until
me.
the end, and then things just blow up. And so
Yep.
you've learned to bring those up proactively, which is a very trustworthy character trait that only someone who's trustworthy would actually bring up things that others wouldn't and put
Right.
it on the table. Right. So
Right.
you're diffusing the bomb, so to speak, up front. And it's like, I know this is going to come up no matter what. I might as well talk about all these things proactively and deal with them so you don't even have to deal with objections later. Is that right?
Yeah, 100%. Because that used to be me. I would sit there. I could kind of tell if there was something there. But I don't know exactly what and then at the end of it, it's like, well, I think they really liked me. I got a shot. And I did.
Crickets.
Yeah, it did
Yeah,
not.
Bill, this was beautiful. We love what you had to say. Give us
Yeah.
just a couple days to think it over. But this was great. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And then they go into
Anytime.
the witness protection program. You never hear from them again, right?
100%. Yeah.
Yep, happens all the time.
Yeah.
So with the skill set that you have now, I know we talked about doing 50 deals this year. You know that gets you about 10 million in volume. Is that right?
Right.
In your
Yeah.
market, does that pay you 250 grand, something like that?
Yeah. Spot on. Yeah.
It's great.
Spot on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as you look forward, because I obviously that's very, very doable for you. What is it that when you look long term, what is your vision for yourself in this business?
Yeah. I mean, long term, yeah, it's so hard long term, right? But
Yeah.
like every year so far has been double, right? So that's kind of it feels like the next goal is there. I'm looking at an assistant doing that. So I don't know. It's funny because I watched your YouTube channel and I had it was like I saw you were saying I want to get you to 100,000, and then from there I hope you'll have enough trust in the content provider you sign up, right?
Yeah.
And I did that, right? And then at the end of the year I realized, oh, I'm going to make 100,000 for sure, right? And I started to like pull back. I'm like, I don't think I need the coaching, right? I don't.
Yeah.
Start to get. I'm doing the same thing kind of with an assistant. I feel like I'm kind of applying one. So that's kind of the direction I'm heading.
Yeah. No, thanks for the honesty. Makes total
Yeah.
sense. Yeah. Last one for me, Bill. If you can start all over with what you know now, what are some of the things you'd be doing differently to start off as a brand new agent that other agents could start doing right away?
Yeah, I would say the number one thing is just volume, like way more volume. So, a lot of people are quick to say like their contact rate is off or it's their close rate or whatever the problem is. But anytime I start feeling that, I realize like I need to go back to the numbers. Am I doing enough to actually even know that that's a problem? Is
Mm,
my first go-to. It just speeds up the learning curve a ton, right? And then
yeah.
that combined with, I mean, it kind of goes the same way, but like paying down that ignorance tax of like, I need to build skills. Who can teach me skills and how can I do that faster?
Yeah. Yeah. No doubt. It's great. And so obviously you're tracking your numbers.
I am, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Most
if I
agents don't do
slack,
that.
right? But even if I don't, right? If I start to slack on that, I feel because you'll just start feeling a problem, right? Then I always go back to my numbers, and if they're not there, then I'm like, well, then maybe I should start tracking my numbers, right? So, but yeah, I've been pretty consistent about it this year.
It's great. Well, man, I appreciate it. I mean, I got a page of notes, and so I'm sure the audience will too. So I'll thank you for them as well. And
Yeah.
yeah, I don't see any reason why you can't, especially in your market, be able to do 100 deals next year, which would be pretty exciting for you.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't thank you enough, man. You've been a huge part of it. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, my friend. Appreciate it, Bill. We'll talk to you soon. All right.
Awesome. Take care.